It's the 7th day of July. Hello there. Welcome to GTV Breakfast News. I am Maltiti Saida Sadek. We have a great show for you on GTV Breakfast. We're bringing you the news now. Follow our stream on social media, GTV Ghana on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. We've joined Threads as well. Well, if you're going live, we will be live there as well. On DSTV, you can watch us on channel 278. Now, we'll take you to the courts. We'll do politics. We'll look at climate action. We'll take you to look at business and trade and go to the international front. Now, the minority in Parliament yesterday boycotted sitting to accompany two members of the caucus to court. The minority leader, Dr. Kasiala Tuforsin, and the MP for Asin North, Mr. James Gyakye Quayson, were due to appear in court today for the ongoing trial of their cases. This was contained in a release signed by the minority chief with Mr. Gavins Kwame Agbuza. The absence affected the business of the House as the health minister was scheduled to answer a few questions from both sides.
The swearing in of the MP for Asin North, Mr. James Gyakye Quayson, last Tuesday, the minority leader, Dr. Kasiala Tuforsin, announced that henceforth the whole minority caucus would accompany their colleague, Mr. Quayson, to court whenever his case was called. Later the same day, the caucus again announced that they would boycott all parliamentary proceedings whenever the court case of any of their members were called. Dr. Kasiala Tuforsin is currently facing a criminal case related to an alleged financial loss of 2.37 million euros to the state. The case revolves around a deal to purchase 200 ambulances between 2014 and 2016. Mr. Quayson, on the other hand, is facing trial at the High Court in Accra on charges of forgery and perjury. The MP for Esitifi South, Mr. Collins Dauda, is also facing charges of willfully causing financial loss to the state in respect of the affordable housing project at Sagleme. The minority, as announced earlier, were absent from sitting on Thursday, July 6. This affected business of the day as the health minister was present to answer some questions.
I take it that we can now adjourn the House.
Right Honourable Speaker, that's about all for the day, and I move that we adjourn to tomorrow.
Speaker, I second the motion.
Motion moved and seconded is for the consideration of the House. I put the question, there be no consideration. Those in favor for the adjournment of the House, say aye. Aye. Those against, say no. No. The ayes have it.
Sitting has since been adjourned to Friday, July 7, 2023, at 10 o'clock in the forenoon. Rachel Quarty, GBC News, Parliament.
Reacting to the absence of the minority caucus, some members of the majority condemned their actions and asked that they rescind their decision to boycott proceedings.
To go through the processes. If he's found not guilty, hooray, he'll come back and work with us. If he's found guilty, he pays for his crimes, and then we continue and move on. Obviously, we can work without them, with the minority the majority for in a quorum. However, it's always good that all the representatives of all the people of Ghana participate in the decision-making processes, and therefore, if they are here, the better. However, if they are not here, just as you've all witnessed, we've not been able to achieve much today because we would always want to work alongside with them. I think they should rescind their decision, come back here and let us work. They can send a delegation to go and solidarize with their members who are being prosecuted by the state.
It's rather unfortunate. I don't know where. They were elected to come and sit in Parliament. They were not elected to be accompanying people to court. Their constituents should take note that today they asked a lot of questions about their educational infrastructure, about their health infrastructure, and about tourism in their various constituencies. But they were not in Parliament to even ask those questions. The ministers were there, the answers were provided, but yet none of them were not in the chamber, in the excuse that they have accompanied somebody to court. I don't know what kind of democracy or parliamentary procedure is this, but we are watching them keenly. If we as legislators are making laws and we expect the judiciary to implement it, now we are now telling them that so now Quayson is above every other Ghanaian, so they should actually call that all cases in court should be dropped, but not of a particular person.
Away from Parliament, let's go to the courts. Lawyers for MP Fasin North James Gyakye Quayson have moved an application for stay of proceedings at the High Court, while the Court of Appeal determines an appeal against the court's decision to hear Mr. Quayson's criminal case on daily basis. Chachu Chikata, arguing the case, said continuing the matter would prejudge the issues of the right of fair trial, right to be presumed innocent, as well as a limit on discretionary power of the court. Meanwhile, an audio with the voice of President Akufo-Addo allegedly remarking that Mr. Quayson was played in court as evidence to back their claim.
Lawyers for Mr. Quayson argued that the application, if not granted, would convey the impression of a predetermined outcome of the trial. He argued further that it is an exceptional circumstance when it could lead to a person presumed innocent being unjustly tried. A portion of President Akufo-Addo's audio recordings expressing his view about Mr. James Gyakye Quayson during a campaign rally ahead of the Asin North by-election last month was played in open court. The audio is part of comment referenced to by Mr. Chachu Chikata to support his argument about alleged prejudicial remarks against Mr. Gyakye Quayson. The Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Mr. Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, in his argument opposing the application, noted that lawyers for plaintiff are seeking to waste the court's time with the instant application. Prior to playing the audio by the defense team, Mr. Dame opposed the move, saying playing 15 seconds of the audio was unjust. He added that the full video should have been played to give the court a proper context of the issues being referred to by Mr. Chikata. Mr. Dame described the application a bundle of confusion grounded on distortion, which must be rejected. Justice Mary Mame Ikuya Yanzu, in a short ruling, said she would deliver her ruling on the application for stay of proceedings on Tuesday, 11 July 2023.
We indicated that it is going to be against Article 19, which talks about fair trial, and Article 296, which has to do with proper discretion. And we are saying that the judge didn't exercise her discretion properly, and for that matter, if she continues without giving hearing to our plea, it will prejudice the case. And it will also mean that the comments made by the President and the Attorney General will be carried out by her. It shouldn't be that when the ordinary Ghanaian is watching from afar, would say that, oh, what this judge is doing is in furtherance of what the President and the Attorney General has said already.
Also in court, the case involving the minority leader, Dr. Ato Forson, was adjourned to July 13, 2023. The adjournment became necessary due to the absence of Richard Jakpa, third accused, who is reportedly unwell. Dr. Forson, together with a former chief director of the Ministry of Health, Sylvester Animana, and a businessman, Richard Jakpa, had been accused of causing financial loss to the state to the tune of 2.37 million euros in the deal to purchase some ambulances for the country between 2014 and 2016.
Away from the coast, the National Food Buffer Stock Company, NAFCO, says it sympathizes with the unfortunate situation that its food suppliers find themselves in, which has compelled them to picket at the head office premises. The company is also equally concerned about the suppliers' plight and appreciates their patience. In a statement, the Corporate Affairs Department of NAFCO says an emergency board meeting has been scheduled on the situation, and the outcome, including a possible roadmap for resolution, will be shared thereafter. The statement says the board and management of NAFCO are committed to working with all key stakeholders, including the Ministries of Education and Finance, for prompt resolution of the issues. Let's go to the Northern Local Security. The Northern Command of the Ghana Armed Forces continues to test its readiness to avert any attack by violent extremist groups in Northern Ghana. On Wednesday, the command staged a hostage-taking situation at the Bank of Ghana in Tamale and successfully neutralized the attack and rescued the hostages. The simulation exercise forms part of efforts to prepare the troops for a potential terrorist attack on Ghana.
As the threat of violent extremism increases in the Sahel, stakeholders in Ghana remain vigilant to the security threat across the eastern, western and northern borders with Togo, Ivory Coast and Burkina Faso respectively. Security experts have warned that violent extremist organizations operating in the Sahel are seeking to reach coastal countries including Ghana. Ghana has so far avoided a terrorist attack. However, stakeholders have intensified efforts to prevent and contain violent extremism. While using the soft approach to sensitize citizens to be vigilant, the security forces have also been preparing for a possible attack. The simulation exercise at the Bank of Ghana in Tamale follows a joint multinational exercise dubbed Exercise Africa Lion, which took place in Daboya in the Savannah region. The Chief Operations Officer of the Northern Command Headquarters, Colonel Frank Olanyo Agbegbo, emphasized that the threat of terrorism is real.
We all know what is happening in the Sahel region, where the terrorist groups are all over the place and they are descending southward. So, you know, those terrorists, they need a lot of money to execute their mission. And we assume that in the northern sector here, Bank of Ghana is a very good asset for them if they get it. So because of that, we planned a simulation exercise between Bank of Ghana staff and the security services to see our responses when something like that happens.
Some officers of the Northern Command of the management of the Bank of Ghana in Tamale observed the exercise from the sidelines.
Away from the north, the 2022 World Disaster Report has been launched at the National Disaster and Management Organization NADMO headquarters in Accra. The report touched on 3-point plans: trust, equity and local action. The World Disaster Report, when adopted, will act as an agent of change as it will work towards a future where disasters no longer bring devastation, but rather resilience, hope and opportunity.
The 2022 World Disaster Report arrived at the crucial juncture in history as the world witnessed the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which tested countries' resolve, stretched countries' resources, and exposed the vulnerabilities in the system. In 2021, 378 disasters were recorded, excluding disease outbreak. This was higher than the 20-year average of 337 disasters per year. Many countries had to respond to hazards like hurricanes and floods, whilst also dealing with COVID-19. The 2022 report emphasized on trust, equity and local action, lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic to avert the next global crisis. However, countries inadequately prepared with the management of COVID-19 pandemic and how to effectively tackle for future public health emergencies. The report also replicates on the recognition of the central role played by trust and equity in effective responses to pandemics and disasters. The Director General at NADMO, Mr. Eric Nana Agyemang-Prempeh, highlighted the mandate of NADMO in disaster management.
Disasters such as this will enable citizens and policymakers to properly shape policies and resource allocation to meet disaster management needs, capacity requirements, and disaster risk knowledge gaps to increase total community and country resilience to disasters.
The president of the Ghana Red Cross Society, Mr. Kwame Jima Akwafo, said the document should not be read and forgotten, but should be a call to action.
Ghana Red Cross Society stands ready to support all these efforts. We will continue to advocate for change, to provide assistance in times of need, and equally importantly, to ensure that no one is left behind.
A panel discussion from representatives from the Ghana Health Service, International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, University of Ghana, School of Public Health, NADMO, and the Ministry of Health touched on how we can ensure epidemic and pandemic financial reaches the most in need, how to work together to ensure that local actors and communities are not left out of current and future disaster outbreak management efforts, among others. The 2022 World Disaster Report was partially funded through the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Society's COVID-19 response.
Let's look at climate action. We are also working on risk financing and insurance that include getting the private sector's operations insulated from any climate risks so that they get integrated into the market. That is the Accra Marrakesh agenda, says the head of Program's Climate Vulnerable Forum, Matthew McKinnon, when he called on President Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House in Accra. Ghana is now the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, which has the theme, quote, Fair Share for All.
July 3, 2023 is on record as the hottest day ever on Earth. As the chair of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, Ghana is trying every possible course of action to leave a lasting legacy in ensuring that there is a level playing field in terms of climate financing. And leading the head of programs, Climate Vulnerable Forum, Matthew McKinnon, to the Jubilee House in Accra, Ghana's Finance Minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, said it is necessary to set up an organization that will champion the cause of countries reeling under the weight of climate change.
We just finished a meeting on the issue of a permanent international organization. And Mr. President, that will be the most powerful legacy, because it will be 58 countries where our target is to get to 100. Already there are 27 African countries involved, and then that becomes really the hotbed.
His statement resonated well with Matthew McKinnon and called for debt reforms and to rally the private sector to join the crusade to invest in climate-resilient projects.
You know, the Accra Marrakesh agenda, we're looking at debt reform, we're looking at shifting financial flows that are already in the international financial system from brown and risky to make them more available for green and resilient. We would like that the common framework be more supportive of all of the vulnerable countries and really support this climate prosperity agenda. We are seeking a new global deal on carbon, which ties into the fair share call.
President Akufo-Addo said Ghana is bound to the calls to reduce carbon emissions, but stressed the need for developed economies to honor their pledges.
Ghana has played a very active role. Kufuor was one of the co-chairs of the Paris Summit, our former president. And I think that in itself, symbolically, is a major statement about Ghana's involvement, participation in trying to find solutions, fair solutions, equitable solutions. And I think that the concept of the fair share for all is a slogan that really hits the nail on the head. Yeah, because that is at the end of the day what we should all be looking at. Those who are most responsible for the problem ought to bear the burden, the greater burden of trying to resolve the problem, and that those of us whose participation in it is relatively minimal, we should not be the ones to have to sort of break our necks to find the money to make the adjustments.
Accra hosted a Climate Vulnerable Forum in April 2022 and will lead the V20 countries at the IMF World Bank annual meetings in Marrakesh in Morocco in September this year to push for a better climate financing package. Edward Nyaku reporting.
Still on climate action, Africa has in the last 2 decades lost over $200 billion due to climate change, with Ghana currently needing $4.2 billion to meet the cost of implementing climate change adaptation actions. These actions, according to the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, will demand $8.9 billion from international sources to be duly implemented.
Been affected the most by climate change than most other parts of the world, despite bearing the least responsibility for the problem. With nearly 1/5 of the world's population today, Africa accounts for less than 3% of the world's energy-related carbon dioxide emissions. At the Global Shield Initiative Forum in Accra, which aims at increasing protection for climate-vulnerable economies and communities. The Minister for Finance, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, said Ghana signing up for the Global Shield Against Climate Risk demonstrates the country's commitment to minimize the losses caused by climate change.
In order to build a climate-resilient economy and transition to a low-carbon development pathway, it is imperative that we make informed decisions based on reliable data at both the national and subnational levels in order to minimize the impact of climate change and enable development-positive climate action. Accurate information regarding climate risk is vital for identifying vulnerable areas, designing appropriate adaptation strategies, and allocating resources.
The Minister at the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation, Dr. Kwekwe Friyi, said the challenge now is how to get the environment back to the pre-industrial era while maintaining the comforts and benefits of science and technology today.
Developed countries need to step up and stop dodging scrutiny and work to rebuild trust with developing countries, delivering on their climate finance commitments. Here, I oppose to say that we are in all this together. Sometimes I ask myself, if climate, all those things, 96% were caused by developed countries plus India and China, which are developing fast, then why the hell should Africa even attend all these things? Because as for mitigation, that is your fault.
The German ambassador to Ghana, Mr. Daniel Kroll, said he is pleased that some G7 countries have committed to follow the steps of Germany by committing monies to mitigate the effects of climate change. Germany has put in a 170 million euro seed money towards the cause.
Away from climate action, the National Information Technology Agency is developing legislative instruments for the implementation of the NITA and the Electronic Transaction Acts. For a very long time, operationalization of the two acts has become challenging because of the absence of a legislative instrument. Developing the LI has also become necessary due to government's digitalization agenda.
Effective legislative instrument which will guide the operations of this act has been hampering our digitalization efforts. We've been trying to work with the Public Procurement Agency to ensure that all procurement of ICT goods and services are done with the input of NITA. If an agency doesn't do it, how do you ensure that they actually abide by it? You need the processes that will tell them that when you are procuring goods and services, you need to consult NITA because the LI says so, and that LI is referable to this act. All these things were lacking. When an agency is doing something and they do not involve NITA in the, just like the Attorney General is the legal advisor to government, we see NITA as the ICT advisor to government. Not all of us are experts in this area. So we've left it for the service providers to dictate the pace of our digitalization without the policy maker determining the how and the when and the what.
Oh, and just as I've said, it is going to give us the operational mandate. It will clear any ambiguities, it will take the high level stuff, which is what the Primary Act does. And then that's why you have subsidiary legislation, and you will bring it down to a level where everybody would understand.
Let's take you to the international front now, starting off from Africa. The Kenyan government says it's delaying the reopening of its border with Somalia after attacks on its soil attributed to the Islamist militant group Al-Shabaab. Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki said the phased reopening of the border post along the lengthy frontier would not go ahead as announced in May. He said the decision has been informed by the recent incidents of threat and cases of insecurity in the frontier regions. It comes as 5 civilians and 8 police officers were killed in separate incidents near the border last month. The border was initially closed in 2011 because because of attacks by Al-Shabaab, which has been waging an insurgency against the central government in Mogadishu. The minister also announced Kenya would, in a few weeks, begin integrating refugees who have been staying in camps as part of a new way of managing them. Now, Ukraine's Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko says a Russian rocket has hit an apartment building in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv, killing at least 4 people. He added another 32 people were injured in what the mayor said was one of the biggest attacks on the city's civilian infrastructure. Now, 10 million users signed up for Meta's newly launched Threads app in its first 7 hours. The company's chief, Mark Zuckerberg, says he pitched the app as a friendly rival to Twitter, which was bought by Elon Musk in October. Experts say Threads could attract Twitter users unhappy with recent changes to the platform. Threads allows users to post up to 500 characters and has many features similar to Twitter. Despite Threads being a standalone app, users log in using an Instagram account. Their Instagram username carries over, but there's an option to customize their profile specifically for Threads. Meta says users will also be able to choose to follow the same accounts they do on Instagram. The app also allows users to be private on Instagram, but public on Threads. Also, Elon Musk is suing Mark Zuckerberg. That's the latest report we're getting on this issue, on copyright issues. And it's time for us to bring to you the weather update. I, for one, have a lot of laundry to do this weekend, so I'd want to know if there will be some great sunshine so that my clothes can get dry. And Frederick Kujo joins us on the phone lines from Ghana Meteo Agency. Good morning, Frederick.
Good morning, Maltese.
Today, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. How weather going to look like? The conditions in Accra all the way to the north, east, and west.
Well, a very good morning to all viewers. Well, from now through to the afternoon hours, we expect more of sunshine. The atmosphere will be bright and sunny right from this morning through to the afternoon. And we don't expect so much rainfall activities from now to tomorrow. So the atmosphere will be more of sunshine for us to have our normal activities. Into tomorrow, more of sunshine will also be seen across the entire country, right from the coast through to the northern half of the country. And then some isolated thunderstorms or rainfall activities are expected from late afternoon to evening over the northern sector, and then some few areas in the forest belt. Into Sunday, similar conditions expected, partly cloudy conditions in the early hours of the morning. Then there'll be more sunshine right from afternoon and then through to the evening hours. So from now into the Sunday, we expect stable conditions in terms of rainfall activity. So we can have our outdoor programs without any distraction of rainfall.
In our fisher folk?
Well, for our fisher folks, right now over the sea waves are a bit calm, and then also we don't expect any sundry activities on our sea shores. But then people along the Volta Lake are likely to have some sundry activities from late afternoon into the evening on Saturday and then Sunday. So we expect that they'll take some precautions during that period.
Great. Thank you so much. Frederick Kujo is giving us all the updates. We need to plan our day and our activities from today till the weekend. He did say that in Accra, well, some sunshine over the northern part, maybe some cloudy weather conditions and rainfall. That's it for GTV Breakfast News. I am Maltiti Saida Sadek. You know where you can get more news when you log onto our website, gbconline.com. Our social media handles are still active and live, and you don't want to leave just yet, because up next, our tech guys in the studio, we're looking at tracking your lost device. I'm sure you'd want to know where